Have you ever walked into a room and completely forgotten why you went there? Have you searched the entire house for your glasses, only to find them on top of your head? Or found yourself in the middle of a conversation, reaching for a word you absolutely know and just couldn't get it out? If these moments sound familiar, you've probably felt that small, cold wave of anxiety wash over you. Is this just tiredness? Is this normal aging? Or could this be the beginning of something I've been quietly dreading? Today, we're going to answer that question directly and clearly. We'll walk you through a science-based 1-minute self-check that helps you tell the difference between everyday forgetfulness and early warning signs that genuinely warrant a conversation with your doctor. And even more importantly, if you do find concerning signs, this is not the end of the road. In fact, it may be the most empowering moment you've had in years. Stay with us, especially for the 3-question self-assessment in the middle of this video. It's based on clinically used screening principles, and something you can use right now, for yourself and for your loved ones. Let's get started. First, the most important question. What is the actual difference between forgetfulness and dementia? Most people say, forgetfulness means you forget a little, dementia means you forget a lot. That's understandable, but it's not quite right. The difference isn't about quantity. It's about something more fundamental. Here is the core distinction that changes everything. Forgetfulness is a retrieval problem. Dementia is primarily a storage and encoding problem. Let's break that down. Your brain processes memories in 3 stages. First, information enters your brain through your senses and attention. Second, it gets encoded and stored in your neural networks, particularly through a region called the hippocampus. Third, when you need it, your brain retrieves and reconstructs that memory. In normal age-related forgetfulness, the storage is usually intact. The information got in. It's in there somewhere. What breaks down is the retrieval process. The file exists, but the search function is slow. That's why, with ordinary forgetfulness, a hint or a cue works. Someone says, "It was that restaurant on Elm Street." And suddenly the whole memory floods back. The information was stored. You just needed a prompt to find it. In dementia, particularly Alzheimer's disease, the problem is at the storage level. Information doesn't get properly encoded in the first place, or memories that were once stored begin to dissolve. This is why providing a hint doesn't help. The file simply isn't there to retrieve. This one distinction is the scientific key to everything we'll discuss today, including the 1-minute test coming up shortly. Now, before we get to the test, let's talk about what normal brain aging actually looks like. Because understanding normal helps us recognize abnormal. Our brains reach their peak size and complexity in our early 20s. After that, gradual changes occur over the decades. Neurological research suggests that by the time we reach our 60s, total brain volume may have decreased by roughly 5 to 10%. Compared to young adulthood, the prefrontal cortex and hippocampus tend to show the most change. This is not disease. This is biology. With normal aging, you might notice it takes a little longer to process new information than it used to. Multitasking feels harder. A word or name is on the tip of your tongue but arrives a few seconds late. You occasionally walk into a room and need a moment to remember why. The crucial point is this. These normal changes don't significantly disrupt daily life. You're aware they're happening. You compensate with notes, reminders, or a phone calendar. And they stay relatively stable over time rather than progressively worsening. Now, what does early dementia actually look like? And how is it different? A landmark report published in a major international medical journal in 2024 confirmed something that should genuinely give us all hope. An estimated 45% of all dementia cases could potentially be prevented or delayed by addressing 14 modifiable lifestyle and health factors. Nearly half. Dementia is not simply a fate handed to us. Our choices matter enormously, but the same research reinforced something equally important. The earlier we detect and respond to early warning signs, the better the outcomes. Studies have found that it takes an average of more than 3 years between when first symptoms appear and when a person actually receives a diagnosis. That gap represents missed opportunity for intervention. So let's be clear about what those early warning signs are. The first and most talked about sign is recent memory loss. That disrupts daily life. Not occasionally forgetting where you put your keys. Rather, forgetting entire conversations that happened an hour ago. Asking the same question multiple times in a single day. Making an appointment and then having no recollection that the conversation ever took place. The second sign is difficulty completing familiar tasks. Suddenly getting confused about the steps of a recipe you've made hundreds of times. Getting lost on a route you've driven for decades. Struggling to manage a bank account you've handled for years. The third sign is language difficulties. This goes beyond occasionally searching for a word. It involves frequently stopping mid-sentence and losing your train of thought. Using completely wrong words for familiar objects. Difficulty following or joining a conversation. The fourth sign is confusion with time or place. Regularly losing track of the date, month, or season. Becoming genuinely confused about where you are, or how you got there, not for a disorienting second, but in a sustained, puzzling way. The fifth sign is changes in mood, personality, or social behavior. Withdrawal from hobbies or social activities that were previously enjoyed. Increased anxiety, suspicion, or depression that seems new and out of character. If one or more of these signs sounds familiar to you, or to someone you care about, keep watching. The next section is where the practical assessment comes in. But first, there's a critical middle ground you need to know about. Between normal aging and dementia sits a stage called mild cognitive impairment, or MCI. This is where the real opportunity for intervention lies. MCI is defined as noticeable cognitive decline that is greater than expected for someone's age, but not severe enough to interfere significantly with daily life. It's not dementia yet. Research indicates that among people diagnosed with MCI, approximately 10 to 15% progress to dementia each year, but many do not progress. And with proper lifestyle management, the trajectory can be significantly influenced. Identifying MCI early is the golden window, and that is exactly what the three-part assessment we're about to describe is designed to help you do. The assessment we're describing is based on principles from clinically validated cognitive screening tools. This is not a medical diagnosis. For that, you absolutely need a qualified healthcare professional. Consider this your personal early warning system, a reason to either feel reassured or to make that doctor's appointment. The first component is the cued recall test. This directly tests the storage versus retrieval distinction we discussed. Here's how it works. Have someone help you if possible, though you can adapt it alone. Listen to 3 unrelated words, something like apple, highway, and armchair. Then spend 5 minutes on a completely different activity. A simple math problem, a short news article, anything that occupies your attention. After 5 minutes, try to recall those 3 words without any help. Now here's the key part. If you can't recall all 3 words immediately, you receive category hints. The first word was a type of fruit. The second was something related to transportation. The third was a piece of furniture. The result that matters is not whether you remembered all 3 without help. It's what happens after the hints. If the hints immediately trigger the memory, oh, apple, right, and the highway and the armchair, that's a retrieval pattern. The information was stored correctly. The search was just slow. That aligns with normal aging or ordinary forgetfulness. If the hints produce nothing, if the category clue generates no recognition at all, that suggests a possible encoding or storage problem. That's a pattern worth discussing with a doctor. The science behind this is straightforward. Memory assessments used in clinical settings rely heavily on free recall, followed by cued recall, precisely because this reveals whether the failure is at retrieval or at storage. The hippocampus, the brain's primary memory gateway, is among the earliest structures affected in Alzheimer's disease, and cued recall testing is sensitive to hippocampal function. The second component is the clock drawing test. Simple in execution but remarkably revealing in what it measures. Take a blank piece of paper. Draw a circle to represent a clock face. Write in all 12 numbers in their correct positions. Now draw the hands of the clock to show 10 minutes past 11. When reviewing the result, look for whether the numbers are evenly spaced around the circle, whether all 12 numbers are present and in the correct sequence, and whether the clock hands correctly indicate 10 past 11, with the hour hand pointing toward 11, and the minute hand pointing toward 2. Significant errors, numbers clustered to one side. Sequences out of order or hands pointing in completely wrong directions. These are worth noting and discussing with a doctor. Why is clock drawing so informative? Because successfully drawing a clock requires several cognitive systems to work simultaneously. Visual spatial processing, executive function, working memory, and the ability to translate an abstract instruction into a coordinated physical action. Early dementia often affects multiple cognitive domains at once, and the clock drawing test catches that with a single simple task. The third component is insight assessment. This one is deceptively simple. It asks how aware is this person of their own cognitive changes. Research has consistently shown a meaningful difference here. People with ordinary forgetfulness tend to be quite aware of it. They'll say, "My memory's been terrible lately," or "I really need to start writing things down." They notice their lapses. In early dementia, there is often a paradoxical reduction in this self-awareness, a neurological phenomenon sometimes called anosognosia. The person may genuinely not perceive their own memory difficulties. Family members notice the changes first. This doesn't mean a person is in denial. It means the areas of the brain responsible for self-monitoring may already be involved. Important caveat: this single sign is never diagnostic on its own. Anxiety, depression, and many other completely treatable conditions can also reduce self-awareness of cognitive changes. This is one data point among several. Here's how to put the three components together. If you recall the words when given category hints, if your clock drawing is accurate and well organized, and if you are the one who noticed and came looking for information about your own memory, those together are reassuring signs consistent with normal aging or ordinary forgetfulness. If hints don't help you retrieve the words, if your clock drawing shows multiple errors, if your family has been worried about your memory while you've noticed nothing unusual, and if 2 or more of the 5 early warning signs described earlier are present, that is a meaningful cluster worth investigating with a qualified professional. Please make that appointment. And here is something crucial. There are many conditions that can cause memory problems that have nothing to do with dementia. Thyroid dysfunction, vitamin B12 deficiency, depression, sleep disorders. Certain medications and others can all produce memory symptoms. Some of these are highly treatable. This is another reason why professional evaluation is so important. You need someone to look at the whole picture. In many countries, government-funded cognitive screening services are available. In South Korea, for instance, dementia relief centers across the country offer free screening. In the United States, many primary care doctors can initiate a cognitive assessment, and neurologists and neuropsychologists provide more comprehensive evaluation. Please use these resources. Now let's talk about what the evidence actually says about protecting your brain, regardless of where you are on the spectrum right now. We'll come back to that 2024 research once more. The 14 modifiable risk factors identified in that major review include low education level in early life, hearing loss, high blood pressure, obesity, excessive alcohol use, traumatic brain injury, smoking, depression, social isolation, physical inactivity, diabetes, air pollution, and the 2 newly added factors of high LDL cholesterol and uncorrected vision loss. Together, fully addressing all 14 could theoretically prevent or delay 45% of dementia cases. This is not theoretical wishful thinking. This is evidence reviewed by some of the most rigorous researchers in the field. Let's walk through the most actionable ones. The first and perhaps most powerful tool available to you is aerobic exercise. The biological mechanism is compelling. Exercise stimulates the release of a protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. Think of BDNF as fertilizer for brain cells. It promotes the growth of new neural connections, and actually supports the growth of new neurons in the hippocampus, the very region most affected by Alzheimer's disease. Current guidelines suggest a minimum of 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity per week. Moderate intensity means you're breathing harder than usual. You can still hold a conversation, but you wouldn't be able to sing. Brisk walking, cycling, swimming, and dancing all qualify. The consistency matters more than the intensity. 5 30-minute sessions spread across the week produce better brain health outcomes than 150 minutes. Done all at once. Starting now, at whatever fitness level you're at, matters. The second major factor is sleep. Sleep and brain health are connected in a way that wasn't fully understood until relatively recently. The discovery of the brain's glymphatic system has been transformative. During deep sleep, the spaces between brain cells expand, allowing cerebrospinal fluid to flush through brain tissue with much greater efficiency. This process clears metabolic waste, products that accumulate during waking hours, including amyloid beta, one of the proteins that accumulates abnormally in Alzheimer's disease. When sleep is chronically insufficient or fragmented, this overnight cleaning cycle is disrupted. The brain accumulates waste faster than it's cleared. Adults need between 7 and 9 hours of sleep per night. More important than duration alone is sleep quality. Maintaining consistent sleep and wake times. Keeping the bedroom cool around 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Avoiding screens for at least an hour before bed. And limiting caffeine after early afternoon. All meaningfully improve sleep quality. The third factor is diet. The MIND diet, which combines elements of the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet with specific adjustments for brain health, has been studied in relation to cognitive outcomes. The core pattern involves plentiful green leafy vegetables, other vegetables, berries, nuts, fish, olive oil, and whole grains, while minimizing red meat, butter, cheese, fried foods, and sweets. Omega-3 fatty acids, found in fatty fish, like salmon, sardines, and mackerel, are components of brain cell membranes and have been associated with reduced neuroinflammation. Eating fatty fish at least twice a week is a recommendation that comes up consistently in nutrition and brain health research. For those living in Western countries, a typical practical shift might look like replacing a midweek beef dinner with baked salmon, swapping a white bread sandwich for whole grain, adding a handful of walnuts as a daily snack, and choosing berries over processed sweets for dessert. The fourth factor is cognitive engagement and social connection. The brain responds to use novel mental challenges, learning a new language, taking up a musical instrument, engaging in strategic games like chess. Regular reading and writing, all of these build and maintain neural connections. This concept, sometimes called cognitive reserve, refers to the brain's resilience against damage. Social isolation is a confirmed risk factor for dementia, appearing consistently across large population studies. Regular meaningful interaction with others, whether through family, community groups, volunteer work, or continued employment, provides ongoing cognitive stimulation and emotional regulation that protects brain health. The fifth factor is managing cardiovascular health. Blood pressure, blood sugar, and cholesterol levels are deeply relevant to brain health. Because the brain is extraordinarily dependent on a healthy blood supply. High blood pressure damages blood vessel walls over time. High LDL cholesterol contributes to arterial narrowing. Uncontrolled diabetes damages small blood vessels throughout the body, including the brain. Regular health checkups to monitor these numbers, combined with appropriate medical management, when they fall outside healthy ranges, protect both heart and brain. Don't wait for symptoms to prompt these checks. The sixth factor is hearing health. Hearing loss increases dementia risk through several pathways. When hearing is compromised, the brain works harder to decode sound, diverting cognitive resources away from other functions. Additionally, communication becomes harder, which tends to lead to social withdrawal. And the isolation we already know is harmful. If you've noticed difficulty understanding conversations in noisy environments, or if you frequently ask people to repeat themselves, get a hearing assessment. If hearing aids are recommended, use them. This is not vanity or admitting weakness. This is brain protection. The seventh is vision care. Newly confirmed in the 2024 research, uncorrected vision loss is a modifiable risk factor. When the world becomes blurry and hard to navigate, engagement with the environment decreases, social activity often declines, and the visual processing demands that stimulate broad areas of the brain are reduced. Regular eye examinations and appropriate correction are a legitimate component of brain health care. The eighth is mental health. Chronic stress and depression create elevated cortisol levels that, when sustained over long periods, have been associated with structural changes in the hippocampus. Depression is also linked to reduced physical activity and social withdrawal, both of which are themselves risk factors. If you're experiencing persistent low mood, significant anxiety, or loss of pleasure in activities, please seek professional support. These are treatable conditions, and treating them benefits your brain as directly as it benefits your emotional well-being.